Hello, year 9 students. This is Mr. Shaban, and today we're going to discuss some questions based on selective breeding and natural selection. In today's questions, we're going to go through the workbook, the course book, along with some questions from the past papers. So let's start our lesson. We're going to start with a quick recap from the previous video. After that, we're going to start with the questions. A small comparison between selective breeding and natural selection. See, for both of them, we have population of organisms that show variation, and the variation is basically based on the genes. Then, for the selective breeding, the people, humans, are the ones who are deciding which organism is going to breed in order to pass this characteristic to the offspring. On the other hand, the natural selection, it's only the nature which decide which characteristic will be passed. That's through the adaptation. So individuals that have characteristics that provide the best adaptation to their habitat are more likely to survive. So in the selective breeding, as humans have decided, so only the individuals with characteristics that people wanted are going to breed, while on the other hand, for the natural selection, only individuals with the best adaptation survive. So selective breeding is mainly about the humans. They are deciding which characteristic will be passed through which parent and which offspring. In the natural selection, the nature is deciding which one should be passed, which feature should be move on and survive in the habitat. It's based on the adaptation and surviving in the habitat. At the end, what we're going to get at the end of both processes, that the individuals of the species are going to have a favored feature. This feature either decided by human in selective breeding or by the natural selection in case of the nature. So we have in both sides a characteristic. In one side humans are deciding, in the other side nature is deciding. We're going to start with the workbook on page 39 and 40, so please get your workbook, and we're going to start with this exercise. 3.5, breeding a new variety of flower. This exercise will help you to remember how plants reproduce, which you learned about in stage 8. You will use what you have learned about selective breeding to think about how a plant breeder could carry out this process. Noor grows and sells flowers. She has plants that produce very attractive flowers, but most of them don't have a strong scent. She has decided to try breeding some plants that produce flowers with a strong scent. First, Noor tests all of her plants and chooses the two that have flowers with the strongest scent. Then she takes pollen from a flower on one of these plants, flower P, and pushes it onto a stigma on the second plant, flower Q. As you can see in the picture, Noor covers the flower Q with a plastic bag to stop bees bringing any more pollen onto it, so it can make sure that whatever the pollen that she has added on the stigma is going to fertilize this flower. Then she leaves the flower for several weeks until its seeds have developed. Then she collects the seed and sows them. When the seeds germinate, Noor lets all the new plants grow and flower. Then she smells them all and repeats step 1 to 4. She does this again and again for many years. So she makes sure that whatever the parents who are fed to breed together are going to produce offspring, and she get the perfect offspring that has the strongest scent and reproduce it, and so on and so on. I'm going to give you 3 minutes in order to go through these questions and to find the answers of these questions. After that, we're going to discuss the answers together. So please work on these questions, work on the answers, and we're going to revise it after the short break. Okay students, time is over. Let's start with the first question. Name the part of the flower from which Noor collects the pollen. As you know, we have in a flower a male part and a female part. The question is asking you from which part exactly did Noor collect the pollen. You know, pollen represent the male genes, or it's the cell that contains the male genes, and pollen is found in it's found in the anther. Second question, explain why it is important to stop bees from bringing more pollen to flower Q. Because Noor wants to make sure that only pollen from the plant P lands on the stigma of plant Q. If other plant come in, and then plant Q would be fertilized by an unknown plant, which is not going to favor the character that Noor is seeking for. So she needs to make sure that only the pollen that comes from plant P is fertilizing the other plant Q, not another pollen. So to make sure she has the perfect offspring that have the most scent. Third question, complete these sentences to explain why. Use words from the list. You can use each word once, more than once, or not at all. The first statement, the pollen that Noor takes from flower P contains the, as we said, male gametes. The pollen grain grow tubes down to the ovule of the flower Q. The nuclei of the male gametes of the plant P and the female gametes of plant Q fuse together, and this process is called fertilization. Perfect. The nuclei of the male gamete and the female gamete each contain chromosomes which are made up of many genes. Perfect. The zygote that is formed has a mixture of characteristics from P and Q. Fourth question, what is the name of the process that Noor used to breed her new strongly scent plant variety? So this process is called selective breeding. Now we're going to discuss the course book questions on page 51. So please get your course book. We're going to start with the first question. Wheat is a crop that is grown in many different countries. The seed heads of the wheat plant are called ears. The seeds are called grains. Wheat grain is used to make flour. The first photograph shows one of the ancestors of modern wheat, and as you can see it has less number of grains, and the second one has the modern variety of the wheat. So the differences are visible. The first one has few grains while the other one has more grains. So let's discuss the first question. What differences can you see between the old type of wheat and the modern type of wheat? As I said, the old type of wheat has less grains and it's smaller than the modern type of wheat. The second question, explain how the modern variety of wheat could have been produced. As you know, this can take place through the selective breeding. So what the people have done is the following. The people would take individual plants of wild wheat that had the largest number of largest seeds. They would sow the seeds from these plants and let them grow, and they would allow them to reproduce with each other. So make sure that the parents have the favored characteristic that they are looking for. Then they would again select the plants that produced the largest number and the largest seeds, and they would sow the seeds and then repeat the same experiment again. So they make sure that the fat offspring that has the largest and the highest number of grains is going to reproduce again to produce more plants, and so on. By repeating this process over several generations, we're going to change the whole plant, as you have seen in the wheat experiment. Second question, imagine you are a farmer with a herd of goats which you keep to produce milk. You want to build up a herd of goats that produce more milk. Describe what you would do take care. Remember that only female will produce milk, male don't produce milk. I want you to remember what we have discussed earlier last time when we were discussing selective breeding and natural selection, and I have explained this example over there. Yes, we were talking about getting the female that produce most of the milk and then breed this female with a male that has a mother or a sister that produce more milk. When we breed them together, we're going to look for the offspring, and we get the offspring that produces more milk. We'll get this offspring, and then we'll breed it with another male that has a mother or a sister produce more milk, and so on across the generations. We're going to get goats that produces more milk more occasionally than the goats that produces less milk. So it's about time we select the organisms that have the favored characteristic. We breed them together in order to have a new generation. The first question of the selective breeding is the following. We have a gardener has two types of tomatoes. One variety that is red and very sweet tasting, and another variety that is orange but very sour. Number the sentences below in the correct order to show how a gardener could produce tomatoes that are sweet and orange. So I'm going to give you 1 minute in order to go through these steps. Try to put the numbers for each sentence, and we're going to revise the answers together after a minute. Okay guys, first we're going to select some plants that are sweet and red, and some plants that are sour and orange, and cross-pollinate. Second, when the offspring are produced, we're going to select all the plants that show sweet orange tomatoes. Then we're going to discard any plant that don't show the desired characteristic. And fourth, we're going to repeat the selection process until all the tomatoes are sweet and orange. Moving to the next question, it's more about genetics. So the first question, what is the name given to the process of passing genetic information from parents to offspring? Second question, add the label from the box to the diagram showing below. And then we have a third question asking about how many chromosomes does a normal human cell have, and the last question, how many chromosomes does a normal human sperm or egg cell have. As normal, we're going to take a minute. It's like a very easy questions, so take a minute, try to figure out the answers, and then we're going to answer the questions together. The first question, the process in which the parents are passing the genes to the offspring is called inheritance or inherited or inherit. Any of them is going to be considered correct. For the diagram, we have the largest part or the largest drawing is going to be called DNA, and the smallest part is going to be called genes. And then the third question, you know, all the cells contain 46 chromosomes, or we can write it 23 pairs of chromosomes, and half of this number is going to represent the genes found in the sperm or the egg cell. So in the sperm or the egg cell we have 23, because we have the 23 from the sperm is going to fuse with another 23 from the egg to make one cell which is out of 46 chromosomes. Okay, next question. It's a complete question. I want you to take a minute to find out the answers, and after that we're going to double check the answers together. Okay guys, let's revise the answers together. All living things show variation, which means that they are different. Some living things look different because they are different species, cows and daisy. Some living things can look different even if they are the same species. These differences are called characteristic feature. They can be genetic or environmental. Second question, as you can see, the graph is representing a kind of variation, and as you can see we have the variation with different values across a certain time, and this kind of variation is called continuous variation. Continuous variation is the variation that can change across the time. Examples for continuous variation, we have the mass, the weight, skin color based on the sun exposure, the IQ, the leaf area. All of these are depending on other factors, and all of these can change across the time. On the other hand, I'm going to show you another example for the variation, which is called, in this question, discontinuous variation, because in this discontinuous variation it's only one value across the whole time. For example, the eye color is the same across your lifetime. The fruit color is the same, shoe size is the same, blood group is the same. I hope you have enjoyed today's lesson, and see you next time.